And here we have the reason for why we didn't focus on Cyborg's side of the story back in Divide and Conquer, why we focused on Robin primarily, because that was Robin's episode, and this one is Cyborg's. I have some problems with this episode, but we'll talk about that at the end. Let's just get through the summary as quickly as possible. While out on the town, having fun with his friends at a park, having a cookout, playing football, all that fun stuff, Cyborg gets a warning from one of his mechanical components, and it turns out his power cell is failing. This is something that happens every so often. He has to recharge himself regularly, but every so often he has to replace his power cell completely, as it does wear out over time, and if he doesn't, it will fail and he will become basically just a really sophisticated lawn ornament. He has about 30 minutes to pull this off, which is more than enough time, except that on his way back, the Titans get a call that the amazing Mumbo is stealing a bunch of jewelry from jewelry stores. And he, of course, runs off to help them instead of taking care of himself first. And Mumbo, one of the sillier Teen Titans villains, but also one of the more powerful, is able to fend off the entire team long enough for Cyborg to wear out his power cell, and he ends up falling through a big pile of junk in a junkyard where this fight was taking place, and ends up in a sort of underground junk cave with this creepy robot guy and all of his little junk robot creations. The guy has replaced his power cell, but he claims that he has found a bunch of other faults that need to be repaired, as they are quite dangerous. Cyborg assumes that this means that there are problems with his cybernetic components that this guy can repair, maybe even that his cybernetic components aren't as sophisticated as what this guy can build for him, so he sticks around. Until it turns out that this guy plans to replace his human side with robotic parts. Meanwhile, the other Titans are still looking for Cyborg. They think that Mumbo must have kidnapped him before he escaped, so they're still, throughout all of this, pursuing Mumbo, but they eventually learn that he doesn't have Cyborg, which leads them to retrace their steps. It takes them back to the junkyard, and they figure he must be somewhere there. But it's already too late. They're too far behind, and Cyborg has to face off with this creepy guy all on his own. And he can't overpower this guy and his army of junk robots. He's going to lose. He's going to lose his humanity. But as he is interfaced with this guy, who is also a cyborg, he also has organic parts that he's been replacing with machinery. His memories wash back into the guy's mind, and I really wish I remembered what this guy was called so I could actually call him by his name, but I can't. I apologize. They wash back into this guy's mind, and he's reminded of all of the beauty that can be found in the outside world. Beauty that Cyborg wouldn't have been able to appreciate without his human eyes. Or human eye, I guess, rather. And through this, he reminds Fix-It. His name is Fix-It. He reminds Fix-It of his humanity, and even offers to help him reclaim it. And this isn't a bad episode by any stretch. There's a lot of cool ancillary stuff going on in this one. Slade never comes into this episode at all, giving the episode extra time to do extra stuff. So we get a couple of really creative fights between the Titans and Mumbo that really shows off the scope of the abilities of someone who has actual magic powers based off of stage magic, which is a really cool concept. It's one I really like. There's a lot of time to build up the atmosphere of Fix-It's lair and of his creations. And the reveal of all the robotic parts meant to replace Cyborg's human parts is genuinely creepy. There's also a bit of a side plot where Cyborg bumps into a kid with a prosthetic arm, who is super psyched to have met Cyborg because Cyborg is his hero. The fact that they both have prosthetics has helped inspire this kid. I think that's really touching, especially at the end when, after Cyborg has gone through this ordeal and learned to appreciate the balance between the two halves of himself, he's able to inspire this kid further and even inspire one of the kid's friends. It's just, I don't like this as our first taste of Cyborg's character. If this had come later, if this had been a Cyborg character development episode later, I would have liked it a lot better. Because even though, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the comics much since I don't know much about them, but in this case I feel like I have to. Even though in the comics, even though in the Titans comics, Cyborg losing touch with his humanity is a big part of his character, it's not really a big factor in his characterization in the cartoon. He tends to embrace his cybernetic nature more so than not in the series. And so making his sort of character debut episode focused on his nature as a cyborg and on the threat of him losing his humanity just doesn't really fit with the narrative as it progresses as the series goes on. It's not to say that it's bad, and it's not to say that it doesn't factor into his characterization at all. It's just I wouldn't have placed it here in the series. Though I will admit that of the small handful of episodes that does deal with the question of Cyborg's humanity and of his nature that we do get throughout the series, this is by far the best one. As per usual though, guys, I'd like to know, what did you think of this episode of Teen Titans if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22 and I will talk to you guys Wait.